I'll introduce myself in a second, but there are a lot more of you, and so I think you're more important than one of me. Just for like a quick read, also, so I can understand who I'm speaking to. How many of you guys have played around with like an LLM API? A lot. Okay. How many of you are engineers? How many of you are not engineers? Designers? PM, business, CEO?
Wear all the hats.
Okay, all the hats. Excellent, excellent. All right. Well, okay. I'll try to gear what I'm saying to y'all because I am Jonah Goldsaito. I'm a principal designer at Khan Academy. I come from startup world, so I've also worn all the hats. I'm often an engineer. I'm often many things. At Khan Academy, I am usually designing, fighting to make sure that our teachers and students are getting what they need, and often prototyping in code. So, AI outside of the chat box. You all have heard of GPT-4, obviously. It was revolutionary. Everyone's like barely even catching up now. We were an early launch partner. What that means is, well, you know, Khan Academy has a pretty great brand. We're a nonprofit. We're trying to make the world better in our own way through education. And what that means is folks like OpenAI actually reached out to us to say, could we see how this would actually benefit education? And we got to play with it early. And that was a really big deal. We got this chance to test it out, see what would work. And when you're working with LLMs, the obvious thing is you're going to go right for chat. It's one of the things that OpenAI really pushes forward, right? Like well, why? I mean, it kind of makes sense. You throw a personality on it. Ours is Conmigo. We talked a lot about what the name should be, what it should look like. Should there be a gender? There's so much there. All these associations that you have with a personality that's really just a layer on top of an LLM. So we picked two things because we have many types of users, but two that we wanted to focus on. First, well, there's students, learners. So if you had a tutor for every student, what would that mean, right? You could certainly differentiate the way you're instructing for every single student. We have students from second grade all the way up, in every subject and in most countries in the world and in most languages. It's pretty wild. When you're tutoring, one of the big things that you don't have, or that you shouldn't be doing, is giving away the answer in the same way that you do with ChatGPT, right? It'll just give you the answer because that's what it was built to do. It's different when you're a TA. So a teacher is going to have a TA. All of those tutors are going to report back to the teacher and give them insights because they've worked with the students. And now, how can they boil that down? Let the teacher know, okay, these students are needing help in this area. These students really like it when I talk about it in this way. These students are very excited about such and such a subject. Now, what's tricky here is it needs to not just know about the domain expertise. It has to know about class data, how students are doing, what skills they have. It also has to know about pedagogical expertise, right? Different ways of teaching. Now, that's a lot of chatbots. If you think about it, every single student who's interacting kind of has their own bot, and on every page, a different bot, in a way. Same thing for teachers. You get into administrators. You get into parents. And, well, why did this all start with conversational chatbots? Have you guys heard of Eliza? Way back? All right, so it was super basic. It was kind of made, I think, to be basic and show how basic it was. But people really quickly developed emotional attachments. And lots of projects spun off of it. I mean, that was the first attempt. And then, this guy, right? We have this fascination of humans of not only will these machines, these robots, be able to converse with us, they'll want to access things that, like emotion. They'll want to be like us, but they'll never get there. We want to make sure there's like a little distance. You want to be like us, but you can't really, but you'll be super helpful, just you'll never really have emotion. So, of course, like now that this tech exists, we're going for chat, right? Of course we're going for chat. We've been dreaming about it all the way back. We grew up with these shows, these ideas. I'm not saying that chat is not a great thing, it can be great. I wanted to just highlight this one art project. I find it fascinating. It came out a long time ago. It was based on GPT-3, if you can believe it. Michelle Huang, you can look her up. That's her handle right there. So what she did is she took all of her journals from each year of her childhood and trained, fine-tuned GPT-3 on each one. And then she was able to have conversations with each one and ask her younger self questions or tell herself things about her now and say, what do you think of that? She got, her 5-year-old self saying that she was proud of her and she was really excited about this, but why did she make that choice, And she said it was like giving her inner child a hug. I think like this is one of the most successful art experiments I've seen, art pieces on top of an LLM like to date. A conversational UX is just one way. We've known its limitations for a while. If you talk to Alexa or Siri or like, how do you find out that a feature exists? Every once in a while it might tell you about a feature, but it tells you about it when you don't want to know it. It can't tell you all the features. There's no menu, right? So one of the things that we wanted to do is step back from it. So I led a design sprint on my team, the teacher team. How might we actually take that tech and then integrate it directly into our tools, not just have it in a chatbot in the corner, the way Conmigo first launched. So this is a first thing that we built. I'm going to show it to you real quick. It is a way for teachers to write lesson plans. So this is actually launched. Here's a lesson plan. It has a learning objective. It has state standards, which if you're in education, is very important. It has written all of this for me. Over here, I have the document, and it's just a normal document. I can edit it. These are math editors. Here, I have a thought partner. I can talk with the bot about any of this. If I select it, ask it a question, it'll answer why it made that choice to write that. But also, I can take a section, and I get this little menu here, and I can say, well, can we do this as groups? And then if this demo doesn't break, and look, it's working. Now I start to get a group-based version of this. So that was the first one that came out of the sprint that we actually have now launched. This editor right here can be used to write more than just lesson plans on any subject. It can be used to write differentiation for students, different activities to support students, newsletters, rubrics, all kinds of things that a teacher is going to write. It's highly trained in those. Next, and this is a sneak peek of some concepts that we have. We have the tech, but it's not launched. And these are not final designs, but this is a student who is writing an essay, and they're going through all of the stages here of writing a good essay. And here we're on revising, and you can see Conmigo is giving me, it has one piece of feedback on the transitions in my essay, and one piece of feedback on conclusions. Now this is the teacher experience. So here it's highlighting what this student said, and it's saying there's a flag here because May pasted in 56 words. So this is a major concern for teachers, right? That people are just going to go copy something out of ChatGPT, paste it in. How would they ever know, right? This is actually a playback of the essay, and with each one, Conmigo is giving insight into what happened there, what they're struggling with. This is the zoomed in view. You also have a view where you have a summary of how you're doing across the class. This is once you're stepping into a specific student. Now this we didn't build, but I wanted to just show this because I think it's pretty amazing and it's also pretty new. So right here, you'll see this is a web page and it's being pinched to summarize it. Do y'all know Arc browser? It's a pretty interesting browser. They're doing a lot of very interesting things with UX. This is their new version of their iOS app where they gave what feels like a very natural affordance, right? If you think about a map, when you reverse pinch, you zoom in, you get more detail. When you pinch, you zoom out and you see, for example, the whole country, right? The whole world. So this is a zoom out on the information of a web page. I think it's really important that we investigate this kind of affordance, things that are native to the device in the way that you're working. Rather than, they're not just taking all this text and pasting in or opening up some plugin and saying, please summarize this page for me, right? This is just a natural, very quick way to interact. So most of these have to do with better writing, but there's more than that because obviously LLMs don't just deal with like conversations and essays. They can deal with anything that's text. So obviously SVGs, you might not choose to interact with an SVG this way. This is probably better for you, but it really does understand this SVG. You could ask ChatGPT what this is and it would describe it for you. Same thing goes with this chess game. If you paste this into ChatGPT, I did when I was making this slide, it kind of gave editorial commentary on how good this game was, and it is a very famous game. I think it actually gave a little bit of critique though, which was a little bit funny. So all of these things can be run through this LLM. You could ask it, you could have a discussion about this, you could have it, this could be structured data that actually plays a game out for you. It doesn't have to be just text. I want to move beyond text with y'all. So humans are really good at representing the world in language. So it's not just SVGs and chess. Like this is something we've been doing for a long time. Basically everything we perceive, we have this human desire to put it, once we got Papyrus, we were like, okay, let's just put it all down so we can keep it. At least we're trying to do a good job. We don't always get ideas across perfectly. It's just a basic model. You have a trained model in the middle. That costs a lot of money to create. You have your personality and guardrails. You fine tune, you prompt. Now RAG, I think, how many of y'all have used RAG at all? So it deals a lot with getting rid of or alleviating this hallucinations that we're often seeing, right? Because what it does is there's a layer outside, like an agent, that before it runs it through the prompt, runs it through another prompt that says, is there anything in here that matches the kind of data that our company has, if it's internal data, maybe through a library, maybe it has to do with information. It could be looking through anything that's inputted into that vector database. And then it tries and it finds the next most likely token, and it helps when you give it context that will bias that towards an answer that you really want. So we were having a conversation, I forget your name in the back, but we were having a conversation yesterday about the anatomy of a prompt. So I'm just going to jump right to that. We were saying, yeah, this is actually, it's a pretty good model. You state who the personality that it should assume, because that actually really will give you the right kind of, if you're talking to a doctor or a 7-year-old about a medical condition, you'll talk differently to it, you'll get different answers back. And the LLM will do the exact same thing. So you start with you are a, you then do who I am, because it has to know what kind of information you accept best, right? Am I a 5-year-old or am I a doctor? It'll give me back very different information if I tell it I'm a doctor in a specific field. Then you describe your interaction, a lot of context about the job, how you expect it to be done. And then this is a very important one that I think we now all know, but some people forget, is that you give an example of what you want back, a good response and a bad response. And if you're dealing with functions, that might be structured data. So oftentimes you want JSON back in a specific format. And you can say, I need it like this. What if you built prompts dynamically? Because most people are just typing something into ChatGPT, right? Or sending some user prompt off to OpenAI. Now, reusable prompt blocks, like a personality block, you might want to use across all your, it's like making a function, right? This is reusable behavior, and I want it to go in every single one of my prompts. On Khan Academy, there's a Conmigo personality that we want on every page. We don't want it to act totally different. It's a different personality for learners and for teachers, though. Now, a safety block, that's another one you might want to have across the whole site. Now, unique data that you're building dynamically, the user data, right? So it understands the user. When the user last logged in, right? It's really annoying when a bot, when something talking to you, for example, says, hi, I'm Conmigo. You're like, okay, we just talked 2 minutes ago. Is there a problem? You know, it breaks, it's uncanny valley. And it's actually kind of annoying. You might want to summarize conversations you have, and then you also need to inject whatever the page content is, so that it can discuss with you what's going on. We take like transcripts from all of our videos, and that's loaded in, right? So what that means is that Conmigo can actually talk with you about what's going on in the video, and it even knows when it came up in the video. If you say at the end you said this, what did you mean? It'll know what the end is because it understands time codes. It's seen a lot of transcript, right? That's part of its training. I mean, you could kind of assume that everything that's not absolutely brand new is part of its training. So this is different actually. I made a little prompt to prototype in a tool that I was thinking about building. What if you could take all of Khan Academy's videos and make a 30-second version of them, cut them down, but keep all the same content? How can you make it so it makes sense? So here I say, select the exact phrases, basically, and then select enough of them that they make complete sense as a shortened version of the original video for me to fully understand the concept. And really interestingly, it does a great job. So here, these actually, even though these aren't sequential, these read really well. What I could do with this transcript, I could feed in, because I have time codes, I could take that data and through normal functional, through programming, actual programming, make commands that I run through FFmpeg, and then have all of the videos run through this same system, and now have 30-second videos of everything in the Khan Academy corpus. Now, all I had to do to really prove that out was to write a prompt, right? I didn't have to build the whole system. FFmpeg, we understand, right? And you could actually ask ChatGPT to write that part for you. But this part, you can really prototype a lot now that you couldn't before. You can prototype quick changes to test in the product. So on our site, it's very easy to just override the prompt of Khanmigo and say, now do this, now be this kind of character. And I can do that in a user test and see, does this work better with a student? In between user tests, often, has anyone ever done a user test or seen one? Okay, so you'll show them a product. It might be something low fidelity, a mock. It might be something really actually functional. But oftentimes, 80% of the errors you get in the first few people you run it through. And if you have something that's hard to change, the next few user tests are kind of a waste. You're seeing the same things over and over. But if it's just a prompt, that's something that's very easy to change between user tests. And you get back a lot more information on what is working in the product, because now the next test, you can validate your new hypothesis very quickly. It's a very iterative cycle. How else could we do user research? Well, let's say a user wants something. You could tell they want something, they're clicking all over, or maybe they're through chat, they're clearly not getting what they want. Instead of them going and getting in some form and describing, very few users will actually go and describe the feature they want. Also, they don't know how to describe the feature they want. Very often, the Henry Ford quote, right? So, what if instead, something that had the prompt of a user researcher, very friendly, asked you questions, led you to kind of not just describe what you want, but get to the base idea of what is the thing you're really trying to accomplish? What's your job to be done? That is now an artifact, right? Where you have the real information instead of just guessing at what the user wanted. And those are all stored, right? All those conversations. You can also go across all the things that the user input and find common threads, right? This is kind of like in between quant and qual. When user researchers, oftentimes I'm dealing with interviews, I'm dealing with individuals on the qualitative side. And then there are people looking at the quant, but you don't really get much texture in there. You just know, like, this many people followed this funnel. This is kind of in between, right? You're doing qualitative, but on tons of people. And you can summarize, like, the trends across all of them. Now, functions, the important thing about sending back data that you can use, this is a quick experiment I made. Let's see if it works. It's demo time. So I'm just going to talk to this. Move the square to the left 50. Okay, let's try again. Move the box to the right 100. Okay, I called it a square and then I called it a box. You notice that? Move the circle up 100. Move the shape that looks like a planet down a lot. Move the shape with 4 sides to the left 75. Okay, so you see what it's doing, right? If it had to just listen for specific keywords, this would be a really crappy experience, because what are the chances the user is going to know what buttons the text corresponds to, right? They have to learn all those commands. Well, what if they could just describe what's on the screen, or better yet, just describe what they want, right? That is kind of transformative if you get into that for accessibility, for other kinds of, and this was really simple to write. I'm going to give you a tiny window into it. What happens is it takes in the spoken instruction, and it tries to determine which shape you're talking about, which direction it thinks you're going. And I think I might have said move, but I could have said shift, I could have said make the box jump up. All of those work, right? Because it's inferring. And then the amount you want it to jump up. So you heard me say numbers, and you heard me say more abstract things like a lot, a little. Now, next, just to show like really how easy this was, there are two main APIs. There's this browser's native speech recognition API and the OpenAI completion API. And then in terms of how what the frameworks were, there's Node.js, React, and Framer Motion. I'm going to make a confession. I had never touched speech recognition. I heard that there was some kind of API built into the browser. I'd actually never used Framer Motion. I really, honestly, can I just say, am I a bad person if I say I don't like React? I kind of hate React. I don't really like the way you have to think about things. And then adding motion into there, but you know what? The tools have also all changed. So I can kind of describe what I want. And I didn't just get it to do the thing. I actually learned the library. So this is Cursor. I use it instead of GitHub Copilot, really because it's a 5-person team of early 20-somethings who have a website that the main page is, I don't know, I guess it's awesome. And they created something that I think GitHub Copilot copied, which is that you can edit and ask it to make changes right in here with Command K. If you hit Command L, you could talk with a thought partner around it. And this is free if you're using 3.5. If you want to use 4, it costs money, or you can use your own GPT-4 key. But I think they did a great job. GitHub Copilot has now using it. You can see here, this is what I'm getting back in terms of structured data. So all of that stuff goes in. Everything I said goes in. This is all that comes out, right? It's very, very simple. And then it's just changing the CSS of these objects. So accessibility. Imagine a screen reader looking at what I did, right? That's just like very basic, very basic. But imagine a screen reader that understood and could explain anything. I think I wrote couldn't, I meant could. Explain any content multimodally, right? Imagine you didn't have to navigate. Who here has used a screen reader? Oh, that's great. One of the most amazing things that happened at Khan Academy that I've seen in the time I've been there, we brought someone in, and the whole company watched them on a Zoom navigating our product, trying to do things with a screen reader. And this wasn't just someone trying to use a screen reader, it's someone who that's their whole life is using. That's how they interact with with everything digital. He had it on super fast, so it explained it was incredibly fast. He had ARIA Live off. We got to see what his preferences are and how he works as a power user. And for someone who is not used to that, the amount to which that was almost, I was so thrown off. There was so much text coming out in a robotic voice about, the alt text, different types of link, everything. Nothing was getting through to me. And he was just whizzing through and tabbing through, so things were even getting chopped off at the word because he could kind of tell what was going to come next. Now, for him to navigate all the way down to the thing that your eye would catch in the bottom right-hand corner because it's a big red thing, he would have to tab through 100 things and listen to all of them. Now, what if he just said, how do I submit feedback on this site? And it just found it, It just put his cursor there. It just put him in the input box. It didn't even have to put him in the input box. It just took down his opinion. It'd say, what's your opinion for how we should change our site? And then he said it, and then it got sent. It said, thank you. Thank you for helping us make our product better. Now, that doesn't just have to be for people who are blind. You could think multimodally could be for people who are deaf, now that we can create more than just text, we can create images. We could move between any medium naturally, right? You pass from text to image to text to video, back, everything. I don't know. It's pretty exciting. I think we're just at the beginning. I think that screen readers are also like, we left them back in the 90s and haven't touched them. Now, if we can solve conversational discoverability, I think that that's a win for everybody, right? Like, that will make every Google Home and Alexa infinitely better. Interacting with things digitally in your car while you're driving, infinitely better. Now, I don't know, part of me wants to jump and like go work on this, but is anyone here working on something like this? No? I don't know. Think about it. I think it'll be really cool. Very quickly, I just want to say, and I'm not an expert in this by any means, I've only dabbled, but has anyone actually tried chaining prompts together? So you can take reusable pieces. Okay, cool. You might have prompts that are the conversational prompt. You might have a prompt that is running some code, so it's deterministic. You might have a prompt that is extracting the math from a statement the user said, putting it into code that can be executed, getting the answer back, and then that's integrated back into the thing. Because we all know bad math is really a problem, right? So all of these specialized jobs, each prompt can do a better job. And when you have an agent, you don't even necessarily have to have a specific chain. The agent can say, if I were going to try to do this job to be done, it would make sense to pull together all of these prompts in this order. Has anybody seen ChatDev? Yeah. It's absolutely wild. So this is really kind of cheeky. They do it in this 8-bitish style, but this is supposed to represent all of the agents in a software production company, right? So they have a CEO who generates an idea. It hands it off and it spins up other agents. So it says, okay, designer's going to come up with maybe the way the user experience should work. That is then run by another designer to double check it, right? Is that a good idea? They can dialogue around it. This is all happening behind the scenes. I haven't used it. Do they actually walk around and like show chat bubbles?
I saw a demo that it was stationary when I saw it.
Yeah.
But I saw little bubbles pop up.
Yeah. I saw a video. I didn't know if it was a real thing. And then it's passed off to engineers, and engineers' code is run by other engineers, right? It's peer reviewed. It's kind of crazy. They really do a one-to-one in many ways, although it's waterfall. It's totally a waterfall method. But that is then passed on to testers, right? It's passed into QE. And then you get a working product. I hope that doesn't worry you. Did everybody did your heart stop a little bit? I think these kinds of things can be used, to good effect. I don't think it means we can make more, not that we have to have something make it instead of us. So, I do want to be able to have time for questions. There is a chance I'll be able to answer some of your questions. There's a chance I won't. I'll do my best. Someone else here might be able to answer it. But I just wanted to go out and say that, you should really start playing with this stuff if you're not yet. It sounds like a lot of you have, which is awesome. Much more than I thought, which is cool. The tool can also teach you how to use the tool, which is there's no reason to not start right now if you haven't. Because if you're not really understanding what's a good way to prompt, the system itself can tell you how you should prompt it to do that, right? It's it's kind of a weird time to be alive in that way. Learning has never been easier. So give yourself a challenge. I'd say do it this week. Try to pick something you want to make, something that'll make your life a little bit better. Maybe make your life a little bit better at work. Maybe make your systems at home okay, so home's not as crazy. Whatever you think you want to do. And then whatever you learn, I'd say you should share it, because the reason this is all accelerating so fast is because people are really sharing what they're learning. Has anybody gone to Hugging Face? All right, so it's I think, in some way, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would kind of describe it as the new GitHub of open source ML or models. So people are forking them, they're making experiments with them, they're making highly specific, very silly things, they're making very functional, useful things that can be reused by other people, but it's a great place to go and start learning. They also have APIs, so you can use it, not just host, but run things right from there. And I believe there are all different kinds of paying tiers, but go check it out. Lastly, I'd just say I'm really interested to talk about all these things with anyone who's interested. I'm also new to this area, so part of why I'm here is because I wanted to meet folks. And a last little thing is that Khan Academy is hiring for all kinds of roles. SVGs, engineers, UX, on the design side we are. We just hired 4 prompt engineers. Have any of you actually hired a prompt engineer at your org? Yeah, we officially have prompt engineers. In fact, we have senior prompt engineers, which is wild. And they're really good, but I don't know, things are moving fast. So in any case, yeah, I hope in some way something in there spoke to you, but I'd be happy if it didn't, or if it did, or if you have questions, I'd be happy to field them. Yeah, what's up?
Just some quick feedback. One of your points I think is a really great one, where you were talking about adjusting technology so it's helpful for people with accessibility actually will benefit everyone or roll down the line. A classic example, and I used to work in accessibility technology on brain-computer interfaces where people were physically disabled, and they used screen readers and stuff like that. But like a classic example is the television remote control. That was initially an accessibility device to help people. They didn't have a 7-year-old to go click turn the knob of the TV. So now it's completely ubiquitous. Like everyone has a remote control for their TV. So it's like anything that you work on to help folks with disabilities or just make it more understandable, everyone can benefit from it.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. I didn't know that. That was the origin.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And now with the remotes that you can just talk to and you don't even have to fiddle with the buttons. Because they just kept adding buttons until it was kind of silly. So I'm glad there's just one now. Yes.
More of a related thing that was kind of fun is I like that example of like moving the shapes and just with commands. I saw sometime last year it was a YouTube video and I investigated a little bit more, but it was basically almost like a Star Wars droid. And it was just like a little robot that could kind of, it had 2 wheels and it was balancing and you could kind of move up and down and you could roll and stuff. And all they really did was the hardware stuff, all the balancing stuff, that's a separate thing, but then they had like a channel that you could, that it just accepted certain commands like forward and back and turn and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then all they did was they told like GPT-4, they're like, hey, you're a sarcastic personality and you're a droid, and there's these like 8 commands that you can call, and just output only these functions. And one of the commands that it could output was a speak one, and so basically, any of the movement commands, it would send it to the robot part. The other one, it would send it to 11 Labs, and they use like Whisper to do voice recognition. And the whole thing was like a little bit slow, but you could be like, hey, like move in a square or something. And it would be a sarcastic reply, and then like move like around the square. And it's like a lot of people in the comments were all like thought it was fake or something.
Right.
And it was like I looked at it, it's just like a couple of API calls,
Yeah.
It's like a totally different sort of situation where it's like our kids around a little bit.
Yeah.
One weird thing that our conversation yesterday makes me think about, that might be actually, this just occurred to me, is an interesting space. So like ambient agent around your house. One of the things happening at the moment is VR is getting much better.